What's up, y'all? Today's episode has got two things going on. And the first is a product story tied to buy now, pay later, which has come a long way from what most of us think it is. And what Equipifi is building for banks and credit unions is a totally different animal. And that explains why these guys are signing so many customers and why they have an army of super fans. The second half of the conversation is tied to Jazzy's foray into fintech marketing and totally putting on a clinic while keeping it fun and interesting for her team and customers alike. We talk about how she thinks about brand, storytelling, her experience relaunching their website, and finally, she has some really interesting insight for any fintech operator who's trying to stand out in a market full of players saying a lot of the same stuff. Check it out. Jazzy, thank you so much for being on the show. Let's jump right in. So I heard this crazy stat that over 60% of US customers have used buy now, pay later. I am absolutely one of those, but almost none of them have got it from their bank or their credit union. How is that still the case in 2026?
It is honestly kind of mind-blowing, but I will say that it is something that is rapidly changing. So to give you some context, I think that 60% number probably comes around maybe earlier last year. And I would say that since then, there have been more financial institutions that are making buy now, pay later available. The thing is, when we look at stats like this, they're talking about BNPL in a very specific way. They think about it as a point of sales financing transaction at checkout. And so the way that it comes from a lot of financial institutions, and you may have seen it in, even in Amex, like Planet, in Chase, Chase's Pay in 4, the way that it comes from financial institutions looks a little bit different. And so a lot of times, financial institutions are not included in this. That said, I would say probably 95% of all BNPL transactions today take place through fintech. And that is definitely the major problem that we at Equipifi are here to solve.
And so you guys have something to do with putting a little dent in that number, increasing the adoption in fintech.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we have been for many years the only fintech that has been helping non-large banks like, the Chases out there that can develop their own solution. We've been the only one helping community financial institutions launch this
That's
solution.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so are we talking credit unions and banks as well, or?
Yes.
Okay.
We serve anyone who offers debit cards and checking accounts. So
I want to unpack how you guys are doing buy now, pay later, because it's way more sophisticated than just, oh, you're at time of transaction, you want to stretch out the payment over, a series of months. You guys are doing this in a pretty clever way. And I want to unpack that here in a little bit. First, I want to talk about what you guys are doing in the market, the evolution of buy now, pay later, but also want to offer value to fintech providers out there who are trying to think creatively about their presence, their brand, their website, because you guys just went through one of these projects at Equipifi. Like, what's your North Star from a brand perspective?
Just some background, Roland. I think every single startup that I've ever led marketing at has been in a different industry. And so
Wow, cool.
As a marketer, that's something that's really exciting to me because I like companies that are providing new solutions to new answers. So think what BNPL is doing here at Equipifi at this time, right? This is a solution that has not existed in the financial institution space for a while, and BNPL as a solution has been emerging. So as a marketer, my task is to create not just the answer to the question, but to define the question. Some would call this category creation, category marketing. It's the same thing I did at my previous job, which was Micmac, and we were helping brands unlock e-commerce during COVID. So during a time when brands went from 3% being sold online to 30% being sold online overnight, we had to define the question and define the answer. And so that is my sweet spot, I think, as a marketer. And it's something that has more to do with how change happens and how people react to it than anything else. And in this instance, storytelling and being able to put the right information in the right place matters more than anything else. And so I would say, my North Star as a marketer is I have a friend who says saying nothing is always an option. So if you have come in as a solution, as a company, as a marketer to say something, to always make sure that you said that thing and that you were not boring during it. So
I like that. I
we
like that.
ban boring here.
I
And
like
as a
that.
marketer, I will always ban.
When you look at one of the reasons why getting you on the show was interesting to me is because when you look at how you and your team are showing up online, you guys are just having fun, and you guys are a great example of how you can have fun and you can deliver and land like relevant, impactful messaging at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something, I don't want to like take the credit away from you here, but being an industry outsider
Mm-hmm.
coming in here, it gives you just like a really fresh set of optics to look at the problem and the challenge and the opportunity and the story and all the things. Because as somebody who's been in banking and finance for 20 years, you definitely have to make sure you are not being so rigid,
Mm-hmm.
because so much of financial services is like rigid by way of the scrutiny and the due diligence and the regulations that it's subject to. And
Mm-hmm.
it can really kind of bring everything down to like a very safe, boring flavor, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. It definitely was something that I had to augment to my skill set when I moved toward serving financial institutions. But at the same time, and I think you did hit upon this too, Roland, is that um, as a marketer, we all want to stand out. And I heard this from, a credit union leader, and he's like, I get prospected all the time from different
Yeah.
fintechs all the time, and it starts to all blur into one. And I myself, I'm not exempt from this, but we always want to say what the customer wants to hear. But at the same time, like, did you really understand what they want to hear? Because what this, credit union individual saw in his inbox was everyone saying, do you want to grow deposits? Do you want to grow engagement? Well, yeah, of course I want to grow deposits and
Yeah.
engagements. But if
Right.
everybody is saying that, it has no value. It has no meaning. You could have said nothing, and that would have probably served you better.
Mm, I like that. That's some wisdom right there. Man, cold outreach is hard. That's a rough
It's
that's a
hard.
rough road to go. I
That's,
like
yeah.
for me and for Propagate, my North Star is delivering value.
Mm-hmm.
And something weird happens when you insist on delivering value, when you interact with prospective customers,
Yeah.
is everything that you're hoping to get out of that interaction is easier and better, right? Like there's just when you're actually delivering value and you're helping people, it just greases the rails on the entire relationship. If you want to work with them, if you want to sell to
Mm-hmm.
them, if you want to tap their expertise for something. And I want to say I got that from guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, who I'm sure
He was
you've heard of him.
he's an advisor of my last company. He was an investing
No
advisor.
way.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool.
That was
What a
very much in the
guy.
DNA of our last company too.
Okay. Okay. Love
You
that.
don't have to
Yeah.
put that in
Gary,
the podcast, but just so you know, Gary Vee was a is a mentor.
that's awesome. Well, man, good for you. Yeah. So Gary, and then one other guy that I got to give a shout out to is Pat Flynn at
Mm.
Smart Passive Income,
Oh,
and he's just like an OG in the podcast and like hustle business world, who I've listened to for 10 years or so. I actually got to meet
yeah.
him one time in San Diego.
Oh,
Yeah, great guy. Anyways, both those guys are all about delivering value to your audience and to your customers, prospective customers too. Okay, I want to take
I
this.
will add one quick thing onto that
Oh
though,
yeah,
is
sure, go
that
ahead.
I think a pitfall that B2B marketers sometimes make is that you forget that there's a person. Yes, because your business value is more than your product value, right? There's an intangible human part of it. And so in the initial stages with our company being a startup, a lot of things are in its infancy stage, and you want people to give you grace and be there to partner with you as you learn and grow as a company as well. And in that instance, making sure that you know them and they like you as a person, as a company, is almost more important at earlier stages, because product value will take
Oh,
time to realize. But if they
absolutely.
don't like you, you can deliver all the value they want and they will block you from the conversation. So
Totally. No,
yeah.
it's so true, and we're gonna get to, like, you guys have a really good testimonial section where you have
Mm,
people that are like, it sounds like they would take bullets for
yes,
for Equipify. So
we're
that's
so
super
lucky.
cool. Super fans. Yeah, I think they're called
Hmm.
super fans, right? So okay, well let me draw you out a little bit on just
Hmm.
like the evolution of buy now,
Yes.
pay later. When I learned what you guys did, I was
Hmm.
so surprised and impressed and disappointed that I didn't come up with this idea first.
Hmm.
Why don't you give us like the quick breakdown on what you guys are doing, which in my mind really represents the next kind of evolution of this as an offering?
Um, but there's a lot that happened in 2019 and 2020 with COVID. And one of the things that you saw was e-commerce went from 3% to 30% overnight. During that time, how consumers expect to be served, that I need everything now, I need all information now, changed. And they started to say, and this started very early on, I want to know if I can afford something as early as possible in what we call the payment process. And the purchase process starts at discovery, and the payment process ends at fulfillment. And so buy now, pay later really quickly came about because customers said, hey, I need to know if I can afford this now. And so that's very quickly, Affirm and Klarna came out and said, you know what, I'm at checkout. I will tell you if you can afford this. And it increased people's likelihood to buy. And everyone realized that this is an acquisition engine, this is a growth engine, and everyone started to offer it. Simultaneously, as this was happening, people who were in the payments area of banks realized that there were a lot of things that were happening inside the walls. If you were paying attention, a lot of our customers today were people who started tracking their debit card and transaction data starting in 2019. And they found that even in mid-size credit unions and community banks, that there were over $1 million leaving the credit union every month going to repay these third-party BNPL loans. And it was growing year over year
Wow.
tremendously. At this point, we have seen very commonly like up to 30% of a credit union's membership or a bank's customer base having actively used BNPL. So when you
Wow.
realize that there is a problem, you start to wonder what the solution is. And we're actually the result of that realization. Our CEO was someone who worked at a very large credit union, looked at the payments data. He was a payments executive and said, we have to figure out the long tail problem that this will create for us as an institution, but also as an industry is vast. And so we're actually a company created because of this realization. And so buy now, pay later has evolved since then. And it's because both banks and fintech providers have come to the same realization, is that if you want good consumer insights, if you want to make good credit decisioning, if you want to be able to have higher profitability, you have to, it's a vertical integration story. You have to own the whole purchase to payment process. And that's why you see Klarna, Affirm, and Afterpay offering debit cards, starting, like saving accounts,
Sure.
applying to become banks themselves, because buy now, pay later has now moved from just checkout into pre-purchase and post-purchase. So now you have pre, point of sale, post, and that's the entire purchase to payment process. And so that's what we're looking at now, which is the race to do the full coverage.
Okay. Got it. So I feel like time of transaction is a concept that banks and credit unions were too late for.
Mm.
And post transaction and pre transaction, like that's the window to kind of stop the bleeding on disintermediation on this transaction and all those dollars that are leaving the credit union every month.
You would be surprised. And I'm not saying that point of sale isn't important, but I do agree that banks and credit unions are slower to this part of the equation. What we're seeing is that consumers are increasingly seeing BNPL beyond the transaction. They understand it as a tool for budgeting, for cash flow, because if I made a large payment and now my budget has been impacted, I'm not just thinking about that transaction anymore. I'm thinking about my next transaction. I'm thinking about
Mm-hmm.
affordability overall and my overall cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
So banks and credit unions can come from this point of the story, which is a larger story. And I think actually puts them at an advantage where they're starting right now.
That makes sense. So you guys are able to expose the functionality, the
Mm-hmm.
experience post transaction. Let's say, it's wintertime, you buy a set of winter studded tires, it's $3,000. You guys will offer the ability to break this up over X number of months.
Mm-hmm.
Talk me through and I used to work in digital banking, so this is
Yeah.
interesting to me. But somebody logs in, they're an
Mm-hmm.
authenticated user in online banking.
Mm-hmm.
What's the trigger that is, I guess, sitting behind the scenes, waiting to be exposed to a customer when they log in?
So that's an interesting question because there's nothing that the member or the customer has to do to have the offer. It is a reflection of their standing with the financial
Okay,
institution. So all of this is pre-qualified offers. And so the experience would be I go into my digital banking and I go under BNPL and I look at all the stuff that's already pre-qualified. Now, it can be tied to a specific purchase that's post-purchase. It can also just be up to a certain amount that I could just take out untied to a transaction that's pre-purchase. And within around 30 seconds, you basically have everything that has been underwritten. It is, you have your you
it's a
have your
pre-approved loan.
amount. Yeah, it's basically a pre-approved loan, but you can go through the workflow of choosing, how much and the repayment terms and all of that.
Got it.
Hmm.
Okay, very very cool.
Yeah.
And you called yourself a startup.
Hmm.
Are you guys still a startup? I mean,
We
you're
very
kind
much
of
are.
out there killing it. You guys have got a pretty decent Rolodex of customers
Oh,
at
I
this
love
point.
that. You're right. I say hundreds because it's very nice to be able to say that. And it's true. We have
Yeah.
hundreds of customers now. Um, but we very much are a startup, and we've just raised our Series B. And it has
Congratulations.
thank you. That was a fun website project in correlation with that, you know? Um,
Oh yeah.
but to grow from by the time we finished our Series B, we were around 40 or so employees, and we're looking to triple that number by the end of the year. We
Wow.
would still be
Okay.
considered a startup.
Okay, very cool. And you guys came out of the Phoenix, Scottsdale area?
Yeah, we're currently based
Or,
in Scottsdale.
okay, got it. And are you guys like a remote first company? Are you a hybrid or mix of the two?
Yeah, we are a hybrid company. The majority of our product and engineering team are local. And for those of us who are in customer facing roles, we tend to be more distributed. That allows us
Okay.
to more easily, go and visit our clients and be there to
Sure.
have face time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, before we shift gears away from the product, I've got one more for you here. So the value proposition sounds obvious from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
We like to talk about on the show the disintermediation
Mm-hmm.
dynamic that's so dangerous for traditional institutions. Why doesn't every institution offer this today?
This is such a
What's the
good
deal here?
question. You have asked the question that encapsulates my whole job. Um,
Score.
um, there is a myriad of reasons. I will go down the top three, and we'll get to that. The just to level set, I think that it is insane that it's not available everywhere now for so many reasons. But you've mentioned already one of the stats, which is 60% of US households have used this already, and we also have things that prove that BNPL is now mainstream. Like last year, during the holiday season, I saw research showing that it was the first time that the non-first adopters, the people who are slower to adopt BNPL, are now the ones primarily driving its growth. It is past its initial
Interesting.
stage. Yeah, we
Okay.
are in mainstream now. So
Huh.
why don't and also another area of proof, look at how many different not financial institutions, but like how many different companies before financial institutions were trying to unlock BNPL because it's a
Right.
growth and acquisition play. So in my mind, there's only benefit and there's so little cons, so to speak. And so I would say the reason why it hasn't grown faster, and we have seen it grow very, very quickly. Our demand, we've seen demand like double and triple year over year in the last couple of years. So it
Wow.
is
Nice.
to say that financial institutions are not moving is not true. But we do also believe that they should move a lot faster if you're looking at how fast consumers are changing and what their competition looks like. The reason is because number one, at this point, I think everyone's heard of buy now, pay later. So our role as Equipifi is to educate that BNPL has developed beyond what the initial perception of it is. It is not just, oh, hey, do you want to have an interest-free ability to pay for this over time? I can understand why a lot of credit union executives and bank executives would be like, why would I do this? This sounds risky. But when it comes from financial institutions, you're basing it on data that you have and parameters that you can set. And so, there's some myth around what BNPL is still today. It's evolved so quickly as a
Yeah.
solution that
Right.
people are struggling to keep up to what it is right now. The second one is really related to, as you say, like prioritization and urgency. And I
Sure.
totally understand this. Financial institutions work differently from fintechs. Fintechs will say, customers need this, let's change because we're built to solve one
Right.
problem. But for banks and credit unions, you have a lot more that's there. So you don't just do one thing expecting nothing else would be impacted. I get that. And so for them, it's a prioritization thing. They think that they can wait. And
Mm-hmm.
we think that that's not the best thing to do.
Sure. Sure.
So, and a lot of
Yeah.
times, almost 100% of our customers are now customers because they looked at their own data. They
I was
looked at
just going to say,
yeah.
your founder overturned a very compelling stone and saw the data underneath,
Mm-hmm.
which was the millions of dollars leaving the organization
Mm-hmm.
every month. And for him, that was like the call to action. And so I
Mm-hmm.
guess for you guys, it's a storytelling endeavor that you're trying to kind of shout from the rooftops.
Yeah, absolutely. And some will believe it and some will not. And even those who believe it will sometimes think, well, for me to launch a net new product, it's too much lift. But really, and you've seen a little bit of it from the marketing side from my team, Roland, but we have done everything in our power to make it as little lift as possible because in our mind, timing is of essence. And so whatever we can do to make the experience not painful, not arduous for our customers, we will do. And, you
That's
know,
such a huge piece of if you're trying to grow a fintech business, the
mm-hmm,
main thing that you're dealing with is change fatigue. Like
mm-hmm,
people are in a constant state of preparing to swap tech,
mm-hmm.
just recently swapping tech, learning the new ecosystem, and the idea of another implementation is just like a go-to-market killer.
Yeah, absolutely. And we tried to make it as painless as possible. Our last couple of go lives have been around 60 days. I've seen ones even shorter,
Oh,
and
wow. Nice.
from first call to turn on. It can be, and every institution's different, but that's how fast it can be. However, because as you know how painful things can be in this industry, a lot of the things that I ran into was we would approach CU and bank executives saying this is very low lift, and they would not believe us.
Yeah, nothing's 60 days. Everything is
Yeah,
6 months.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
4
of course,
months,
if you
9
want to
months.
take
Yeah.
that long, you can, but you don't have to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you really have led me to my next question. But when I heard the story about your team, I thought it was so cool and so scrappy. So you had an implementation where the bank's CMO left right in the
Hmm.
middle of the project, and you guys jumped in and basically took over the implementation and the marketing rollout. Tell us
Hmm.
about that.
Yeah. Um, so this is just one of many instances of this, and I'll say when I started at Equipify, and one of the first conversations I had with Bryce is the marketing department as a function has to be partially dedicated to helping our customers go live with their own marketing because adoption is everything. It's not just our revenue model, but also it has everything to do with are they successful? And we're asking them to roll out a net new product that they don't have subject matter expertise with in a short amount of time to people who they need to trust them. And so one of the things that we do on the marketing end, and it's a reflection of really every aspect of our implementation process, is we build a marketing toolkit for the launch. Once they sign with us, we ask for their brand guide and we build out everything. But we say, hey, we have here what we think you will need. This is yours now. We give them the raw Photoshop file, we give them all of the copy and say, make it yours. Just go in and make some changes, adjust here and there, make sure it complies and reflects your institution's values, strategy, goals. And it shortens the time to value. Like even in the age of AI, sometimes the question comes up saying like, why don't we just use AI to do the brand interpretation? And
Oh boy.
I'm not saying AI can't,
Oh
but we
boy.
don't. We don't. We put a lot
Yeah.
of work into every single brand guide, and we even research how they interpret it on their own socials. We research how they execute on their own websites, and we try to give
Interesting.
them as close to like as close to what would be natively theirs in
Very
terms of
cool. Okay.
toolkit. Hmm.
And
And
so you've
so,
got like a standard issue set of assets that you'll produce for them going
yeah,
into the project.
exactly.
Love that.
So the nice thing is, it's meant for marketing teams of any size. We know that every institution is differently resourced. So if you are a really, really large financial institution with a huge marketing department, take it and you just never need to hear from us again. That's fine. Or in the instance that you brought up, sometimes you're a small institution with one person on the marketing team and that marketing
Mm.
person left. You are no slower going to market.
I'd love to hear that, that level of support. And, we talked about delivering value to clients. A
Hmm.
lot of people, a lot of institutions and fintechs that I work with
Hmm.
have no brand guide. And it's, a scenario where they're saying, hey, look at our website. That's kind of like, that's our brand guide, which I get it. There's like
Yeah.
there's such a spectrum of sophistication in
Yeah.
marketing. And that's just like the way it is.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of times it's really just about what's the game you're playing. If your goal is to be a friendly vendor in the industry forever, that might be enough. You have something that a well-defined website and speaks for itself, or if you're very sales oriented, that might be okay. But if you want a category play, if you want to define both the question and answer in an ecosystem, and if you want to become infrastructure, then you cannot not invest in brand.
100% agree. Let's talk a little bit about your new website.
Yeah.
We do websites as well here at Propagate. It's it's a very fun project to do with an institution. There's so
Hmm.
much kind of soul searching and reflection and
Yes.
exploration of other brands and other industries. It's such a fun but also challenging project. You guys
Hmm.
just did a new website launch. Why was it time to make a new website?
Yeah. Um, So here's the dirty laundry, Roland.
Oh boy.
This website 4.0. In the short amount of time that we've been around as a startup, this is our fourth website. And it's not because I
Cool.
love making websites. In fact, it is, as you probably know, an agonizing process.
Yeah.
And you really become a different person at the end of it, is how I like to describe
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It was time for us because of how much our product has grown and evolved in its maturity, how much the industry itself has shifted, and how BNPL talks about itself. If you looked at what payments really has been writing these days, and I think I very much agree with it. Same with Cornerstone Advice. A lot of the thought leaders in the industry, they've been saying that BNPL is now an embedded solution, is now part of the credit infrastructure, is now part of everyday spending, everyday budgeting, and
Hmm.
so we've gone from this kind of like a checkout widget into something that is significantly bigger. Because our product has gotten more complex, will become more complex, and because of how BNPL has been perceived and is evolving as a product, the site needs to be able to contain the reality of what it is. And our previous
Hmm.
site was not providing that room for it.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like it's so funny when you finish your website project, you're so proud of it. You love the new look, the navigation makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
then X number of, months or years later,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like giving you the ick.
Yeah. Oh my God. We looked at our old ones and we're like, I can't believe I used to like this. What was
What
wrong
were
with
we
me?
thinking? Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. So, when we were kind of in the green room getting ready for the conversation, we talked about the who we serve drop down. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of fintechs like to talk about the differences between serving fintechs and serving credit unions. And I'm just going to go like, I'll take some arrows for this, and I'm okay with that. When I worked at Fiserv, I had this really terrific opportunity where I got to travel around the country and meet with
Mm-hmm.
executives and C-suite leaders. And to be completely honest, their fears, concerns, motivations, goals were infinitely more similar than dissimilar.
Yes.
And I felt like that was the case with their ecosystems as well and the solutions that they have stitched together. Why did
Mm-hmm.
you guys decided to do away with having a credit union and bank
Yeah.
page? Why was that the case for you guys?
What's so fun? All right. So, um, the biggest reason is in positioning. Before that, we were the BNPL platform for financial institutions. And depending on what type of financial institutions you were, you could sort yourself into one landing page or another landing page. And it was because the product was simple. And so, the type of financial institution you were mattered more. Now the product has actually gotten a little more expansive. And so what we have is the understanding that buy now, pay later provides a myriad of different solutions. It is not just buy now, pay later. It's installment lending. It's embedded finance. It is for some financial wellness. Different institutions, regardless of banks or credit union, will use it for a different reason. And so it was more important to communicate that value than it was to talk to a specific bank or a specific credit union. So you're right in that in a lot of ways, there are more similarities than differences, but also within the credit union and banks, like in their separate, groups, their
Hmm.
strategies, depending on their size and their kind of institutional orientation, it's very different. And so what we did was we got to a point where because our solution can serve multiple use cases, we allowed them to select into the use case rather than, you know, using
Okay.
it as a way to discern who they are. But I'll add a
I
little
love that.
side story there, which was we once, and we have to do this because we're a B2B2C in some ways company. We also need to know who the end user of this product was, right? There is no difference between the end user of a bank BNPL program
Hmm.
and a credit union BNPL program. They may roll it out in very strategic ways, but the reason why consumers are using BNPL, banks credit unions, and even in some ways relative to fintechs, it's the same. It's convenience.
It makes sense to me. Let's talk about copy. So,
Hmm.
you look at a lot of copy on websites in the fintech space, and it's a lot of the word seamless, a lot of the word empower, and you guys have got some kind of funny, punchy, quirky copy on the website, which I applaud. I'm here for that. I love that. Did you guys get some pushback on that internally? Do you have people that are kind of trying to steer? You don't have to name any names, but steer it down a more kind of safe, traditional path. But how did you land on that?
This is such a good question. I'll point one thing out, which is that I think the best fintechs, even those who sell to banks, still have good copy. And good copy is not boring, and good copy is still clear, and good copy can be quirky. Safe does not
Totally
necessarily mean
agree.
boring. Now, that aside, we have no pushback internally when it comes to our tone, mostly just because I think it's very fortunate that we have a company that really trusts my vision as a marketer, but also because at a very early stage, we determined who we were. I sat down with Bryson. We had a conversation in the beginning about the brand persona. And the question I asked him was, if we were a character or a movie, like what would we be? And he
Oh,
said, Top Gun.
interesting.
We're
Top
Top Gun.
Gun.
Yeah, because you're coming into this very kind of, uh, well tenured, and like well respected institution, and you're trying to introduce new and valid ideas in a way in which they want to learn from you. They want to partner with you. And so because we are Top Gun, we always allow space in the way that we write, in the way that we present, for a level of freshness. And that's something that we'll always maintain.
Love that. Maverick, let's go.
Yeah.
Uh,
You should see our
so
beginning color guide names.
love that. You mean it wasn't just all hex values?
I mean, there was some hex values.
So, okay, if you could do your website project over again, what would you do different?
The whole body reaction you got from me. Um,
Visceral response. Nice.
yes. Gosh, I'm gonna listen back to this episode and regret this. I know it,
Oh
but
boy, here we go.
I'm gonna say right now I wouldn't do a thing differently.
Okay.
It didn't go like perfectly, as nothing goes perfectly, but I think a lot of things had to happen because of other things. So, for example, it took us a while to figure out what color that we wanted to represent us going forward. If
Did
you
you
look,
guys totally shift the colors?
yes and no, because we've always had blue in our identity. We've always had green in our identity, but we've also
Okay.
had other colors that we have moved out. And it's because FinTech BNPL took those colors and it's too closely associated with it. And we
Got
want
it.
to be a
Okay.
representation of financial institutions.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so,
Fintechs, logos, and brands. We love our blue and whites.
exactly. And how do you do blue in a way that um respects kind of who we are as an industry while still understanding that you're here to be forward thinking for the consumer. So that's why we introduced the gradients that we did, that we lightened up the greens that we did. And we really like the kind of geometric shapes that we put together to represent it. Um,
Love that.
and on
Did,
the
did you
other
guys
end, oh, mhm.
did you guys use Webflow or what builder did you guys use?
We're a HubSpot company.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So, there's goods and bads with it, but at the same time, it's very good for marketing.
There's trade-offs with everything,
Yeah.
and the the kind of closed circle functionality. Right now we're rolling out a fintech's website through the HubSpot builder as well,
Hmm.
and just the economies of scale you get are
Hmm.
incredible.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, but I think the other thing was, like there's for every fintech and startup, when you are branding yourself, you have to choose between saying who you are now versus who you want to be. And making sure that we were on the dot with that. was also an exercise that we had to go through. There's a lot of reflective things, as you say, all in the process. I think we needed to make every mistake we did in the process to get to where we are. So,
That makes sense.
yeah.
I get that. I totally get that. So, gosh, we're halfway through 2026. What are some maybe, PR or comms challenges that you guys are trying to solve for in the remainder of the year?
PR and comms challenges. I think that's actually one area that we have a bit of strength in, because we not only have, as you've seen, customers who love to speak on our behalf,
Yeah,
but also,
so great.
very, very loudly announce what they do and what they've achieved with our product. But also, we're very fortunate in that we have aggregate information on how BNPL is growing from banks. And we are potentially the only entity, I would say, that can say that and provide real-time insights into how things are changing. Are people using bank BNPL for in-store versus, online purchases? Are they doing it on their cell phones? What categories? What retailers? Because these are insights that we can provide not just to financial institutions, but the industry at large. I think to make sure that we are providing value during key retail times, Amazon Prime this month, and also, during holiday shopping, there's so much
Mm,
constantly.
mhm.
And we want to make sure that we're doing our part and getting everyone up to date on what the latest and greatest of this very quickly evolving industry is.
That's awesome. What a great space to be in and what a great time to be there. Uh, Two questions for you. One final one here on the topic of marketing. What's an idea that you would like to put in front of every B2B fintech marketing leader that's, something that they're probably not doing or thinking about today?
I would be surprised if they were not thinking and doing this today. Um, but I would say a constant thing I'm always thinking about and trying to do, and I would love to see people do more of and share more information of, is how do you be a person? Um, and this is especially true when there's more and more AI. And I encourage the use of AI. I think that it's a tremendous tool. However, the end product should still be you. No matter how you get to that end goal, how do you stay you? And we see more and more things on LinkedIn. I get LinkedIn fatigue sometimes because I see posts that I know are not written
Oh
by
yeah.
the person.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not the person. And it kills me because I do try to form human connections. Human connections are harder to make in marketing. Being able to tell the right story, to understand and connect with the person, that's the lifeblood of what we do as marketers. And so, you know, it's getting harder to look like a person online.
So
And
true. So true.
AI learns. So as soon as we figure that out, AI will learn, and then our brains are going to adjust. So how do you stay at the forefront of that and keep yourself a person?
That's a great topic from a personal brand perspective. I feel like the idea of the concept of the personal brand is it's always been important, but now there is so much like volume of junk out there
Mm-hmm.
that you got to really work hard and think about how you do that. And the executives at institutions, we've
Mm-hmm.
talked about this on the podcast a lot, but how to make your executives be not invisible,
Mm-hmm.
and how to get your team out there and to create a voice for people. And I think you really should use AI from an ideation perspective, but
Mm-hmm.
when you use it for publishing, that's where you get in trouble. I think yeah,
Interesting. It's interesting because we wouldn't we all like something that would get us to the endpoint that we want without us needing to really do much about it. Um, but here's the thing, like you have marketing in your background, you know what it's like to have vendors write something for you. Didn't you edit the
right.
crap out of that? But
Yeah.
why
Mhm.
wouldn't you do the same? Why wouldn't you apply the same level of scrutiny to what you ask of AI. And at the end of the day, it's pride of authorship. Like, do you know who you are
Totally.
and do you know what it sounds like?
Yep.
Yeah.
Love that. So true. Jazzy, so nice to have you on the show. Where can people find more about what you guys are doing at Equipify?
Yeah. So you can visit us at www.equipify.com. And so that's EQUIPIFI. And some people spell it with a Y. That's wrong.
Okay. There
But
it
you can
is.
find us there. And honestly, we try to be everywhere, online and in person. So if you're out and about in the industry, if you're surfing LinkedIn, you'll probably come across us one way or another.
Love it. Well, thanks again, Jazzy.
Thank you so much.